Welcome to the next session for Align 2017, the virtual summit dedicated to all things B2B sales and marketing alignment. I'm Jeremy Boudinot, Director of Marketing at Ambition. And for this summit, we've chosen 50 people on the ground in the trenches having success and running alignment and sales and or marketing in a high-growth company. And my guest today is Thomas Watanapun, Sales Manager for ZeroCater, a guy I've known for quite some time now and a fellow NBA basketball fan, I might add. Thomas, very excited to have you come on. We're going to ask you a bunch of questions about some things that you've done in first being a part of Peak and helping them grow as a young company, and now what you're doing with ZeroCater and the insights you've learned and how modern teams can scale their operations on the sales side of things. So, Thomas, man, I'm pumped to have you on. Welcome to Align 2017.
Thank you for having me, Jeremy. Excited to have a conversation here and talk about everything that's been happening for the last couple of years.
Yeah, man. No, you've had a busy last few years. So tell people your background and a little bit more info about what you've done at Peak and what you're currently doing now at ZeroCater.
Cool. So my name's Thomas. Right now, currently, I'm managing a sales team at ZeroCater, the San Francisco sales team. We have two other sales teams cross-regionally, one in New York that covers the New York and DC markets, and one in Chicago, and they cover the Chicago and Austin markets. Day to day, just like any other sales team, keep the excitement high, every day, with the team, drive performance, push deals through the funnel and make sure that any deal on the table that's there, gets closed, and we do everything that we can to close those big deals. Peak was a similar but different story. Smaller team, only two different offices, but as far as the amount of the grind that was present there is definitely a lot higher, a lot more hats to wear. Definitely a lot of the ops role was present in the sales management role, as well as recruiting, because we didn't really have too much of an in-house presence for recruiting. And just like all the small, scrappy startups, you do what you can to succeed, and you make it work in the end. And so very similar roles were managing people, expectations, quota, and budgets were important, but definitely at Peak, a lot more hats were worn, spread a little bit more thin. At ZeroCater, you get to focus a little bit more on my team, which is the San Francisco team. I'm really happy to be in that position right now and drive their performance.
Awesome, man. And can you go back a little bit further? You have to be a certain type of person to come in and take those kinds of roles on. Can you tell us what your background was and what attracted you to these roles?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think going back to my first tech job period was a sales job at a company called Trulia. They've since then been acquired by the Zillow Group and now traded under the Zillow Group umbrella. But it was kind of great. My first tech job out of college, started in a sales role, selling advertising to real estate agents all across the country. Really cut my teeth on that role. Really learned how to absorb no's and absorb all the pushback I got on the phone and channel it into success and understanding how and how to sell people and how to be successful in my sales roles, and slowly worked my way into management and kind of delved into a bunch of different roles. Went into training and leading my own training department for a little bit, as well as sales management there. The biggest thing there was I got to experience a super high growth company right at the cusp of their rapid growth and entering in as a salesperson and watching the company grow, experiencing different roles. I got to experience acquisition of other companies. I got to also experience the company going public. Then we got acquired. So I kind of saw and felt the whole entirety of the kind of dream state of startups, right? When you join startups, you're like, wow, yeah, let's try to get acquired. Let's go public and all that good stuff. And I got to experience that all in one sitting, more or less. And after that experience was over, I wanted to literally hit the reset button because I had so much freaking fun doing it, that understanding that I'm going to be in a different position in my career and I get to sit at a different seat at the table. Wanting to experience that the joy of acquiring companies, going public and finally being acquired is what drives me to these roles that say, hey, it's not going to be easy. You're going to be in a tough position. We're going to expect a lot out of you. Those are the types of things that I kind of walk myself into and happily welcome the challenge.
coming into a culture that's killing it and company that's killing it, it's like going in rookie year with the Warriors versus going in rookie year with a dysfunctional organization like the 76ers or something, where you can see a successful organization firing on all cylinders and just immediately get exposure to that, and then sort of learn the right things to do and see what the right way to do things is, and then take that and apply that elsewhere from there, right?
Exactly. That's really how I evaluate, a lot of opportunities in the market too. It's not really about how much the company's crushing it. It's really what opportunity is out there that I can make the highest impact in the shortest amount of time. And a lot of times that is with the struggling teams, because you see such a high opportunity there that an ounce of prevention or an ounce of kind of dedication or hard work into that organization really pays dividends in the future.
You come in now and you've come from this hyper successful organization. You've seen what works, and you're looking to start applying the things you've learned. What were those things? What were the first mission critical things you really wanted to implement? And like, what did you see that you did at Peak now that you're doing at ZeroCater really start to have an impact in terms of aligning teams and driving growth?
Yeah, I'll start at Peak and give a couple tidbits of what was really important there. Definitely there was process in place at Peak. There was a previous director of sales and other sales leaders that kind of came through, and the team was in a place where most startups are after about a year or a year and a half after establishing a sales team, which is they have baseline processes set in place. Some repeatability is in there, kind of nestled away, but on the grand scheme of things, the scale isn't. They don't have what it takes to really get to the next level. And I think one of the biggest things at Peak was really accountability and visibility. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a lot of that. They knew what to do. They knew how many calls they had to make. They knew how many people they had to talk to. But the visibility and accountability wasn't there, where at the end of the day, you can say, hey, salesperson, you didn't get to this number. What can we do to change that? What can we do to make sure you get to that number? And just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page with what happens if you don't hit that number tomorrow. And the next day and the next day, whether it be calls, whether it be meetings, whether it be closes, doesn't matter what the metric is. There just wasn't visibility. It was like a week over week or month over month visibility, right? And so there at Peak, the biggest thing was visibility and accountability into what you're responsible for on a day in, day out basis. As you know, we used ambition at Peak, and we brought that into the organization. And that was actually a really good way to manage it, because previously at Trulia, we did not have any form of gamification. And so all reporting was generated in-house, on a personal basis for whoever the manager was. And so introducing gamification of any sort is huge, because it almost self-manages them. They almost look at it and say like, hey, the only thing that's going to change that number is if I make this next call, or if I book this next meeting, or if I make this next close. And so it was almost as if there was always a little Thomas on their shoulder, just telling them to make the next call or put in the next activity. And so that was a huge part of our growth that helped us grow, the team to almost 30 people in about 3 months between San Francisco, as well as our Salt Lake City offices. I know you have Josh on the books that you're going to talk to in the near future. It was great. He'll tell you the Utah story, and it's an awesome story to see how quickly the team grew and started to really perform at a high level really fast. Looking at ZeroCater, similar situation, but the team was a lot larger than Peaks was as a whole. But the SF team, when I started here, there was about 8 people in ZeroCater. The team has been successful, really successful in the past, other than the last about 8 months before I joined. The biggest thing with ZeroCater is that they had so much success, but now that there's a little bit more market saturation with competitors, and it's a little bit more challenging to pull people away from different competitors, and our stickiness factor isn't as sticky as it used to be. They're having to really dive deep into their sales skill and dig deep for how do I really sell this person? Why do they really want to switch, and how do I exploit that, right? Those are the things they never had to really think about before. So they were a successful sales team almost unconsciously. They were by virtue just because they were first in the marketplace or one of the market leaders, and leaning on that. And so the biggest thing coming into this business is implementing process. implementing scalability and a repeatable process for them to be able to follow. I wouldn't say it's any type of script. It's more of a structure. Structure and goals per each stage of the sales cycle is trying to get at here, and really make sure that's adopted and utilized within the whole sales organization. A part of that as well, in terms of process, is how many calls they make, how many times they touch, a lead or an account or a contact, how many meetings they have, how many in-person meetings do they do. All those things kind of align, and so it's very, very similar to kind of providing visibility and accountability like I did at Peak, and gamifying that process and bringing in tools like Ambition to do that.
It's interesting about ZeroCater too. I think it's fascinating that you came in to this company that had the good problem, if you will, of being so successful. It wasn't faced with the challenges that currently now is, because there's more people going to market. So how are you changing the structure and the mindset there, and how are you changing the process to set people up for success and adapt these new market conditions?
Yeah, I think just like any other good company, knowledge is power, especially in the first month or so, or couple months of new hire training. We definitely believe in a phased approach for training and stuff like that. So the first stage is always knowledge acquisition. And then the second stage is really application, right? So you acquire the knowledge and then you try to apply the knowledge. And so how we set people up for success, especially with the changing conditions right now, is really get them in tuned with what's out there in the market sooner rather than later. And so some of the things I do is in their first week of training, I have them go and do ride-alongs with current reps, go on meetings, go on client on-sites, understand what we do and what we mean to other people. Food is really simple to understand. That's a really, really simple product. But the reasons why people feed their company are the big differences, and the reasons why we do what we do at ZeroCater are different than other food companies, because not only at ZeroCater do we want to just feed your company, we want to be responsible for every calorie that intake at your office. We want to make sure that everyone is happy about that process, and food is never a pain point for anybody at any company. And so we do that really easily overall, and we believe we do that better than a lot of our competitors, but we make it really, really a really hard point to expose them to what else is out there. So that even means if we have clients that churn, maybe they'll go and visit them, and they'll have conversations with them and ask them questions about why they churn. Get really deep into the weeds of kind of like a CS role, but really understanding. Okay, cool. So those are the places we missed, and these are the things that we've done as a company to kind of recoup from that and to get better at that. We also have pretty comprehensive competitor training that we do during our first couple weeks of training as well.
Very cool. And where does marketing, and I love the idea of the in-person visit post churn too. I guess you emphasize in person, to hopefully try to win them back, but then also it's probably more meaningful to have those conversations face to face too, right?
It definitely is. It definitely is. A lot of the people that we talk to on a day in, day out basis, unfortunately, the roles that we target, they don't sit by the phones all day. They're definitely a mobile role. And so for the most part, and so we try our best to have a lot of in-person meetings, especially because most of our reps are in market already. And so we use that to our advantage, understanding that face-to-face sales definitely forges a lot of relationships in different ways than a phone sales does.
Absolutely. And I've started to ask this, but let's get back to it.
Yeah.
Very interesting hearing this. So how's marketing for you as a sales leader? What are you doing with marketing to coordinate with them and arm reps with what they need to combat competitors and to have the intelligence in the prospects and the market in general and all that stuff?
Yeah, this goes back to something that's part of our tech stack that we use company-wide, but we use certain things a little bit more than other departments. So we have a competitor Slack channel that we've set up, competitive intel. It's company-wide, but anyone has access to it, where we dump in as much competitor info as possible. And what our operations personnel does is they actually develop either matrix, like a matrix with all the different competitors, or just a fact sheet of whatever competitors you can do to easily look up in our internal database. The other side of that, you asked about marketing, what they do to support. And so they support us with creating call down lists sometimes. With different competitors in the market. For example, if there's an opportunity that we see, a news article or of some sort where there's an opportunity for us to reach for and grab some from a different competitor, they'll generate some call down lists for us. They support us in other ways. They do marketing campaigns and things of that nature. But the big thing that I would like to highlight is we actually have a director of product marketing as well, that her main focus is really to help the sales team understand how to best position our products to our customers. And so regardless of what competitor they're with right now or we're up against, it helps us really, really understand why people feed their employees and why people want to switch from one company to another, regardless of who they are. And so some of the things that she's done is she has created like a discovery sheet where it's a really, really comprehensive deep dive discovery sheet where it really gets into the needs and the whys of why people need certain things, all relating to office catering and things of that nature. And she's been a great resource so far. Her name's Nicole Barnes, who's our director of product marketing. Been doing a great job and providing sales with a lot of necessary tools that we've been needing for a while. So I mentioned Slack. It's a pretty big time chat tool, and not only that, it's definitely a recognition tool for salespeople as well as an informational kind of database for you as well. We have a Google suite of tools. We have Salesforce, of course, Ambition, Yesware. These last two are going to be probably the biggest needle movers for us. As you guys know, salespeople have to prospect, and prospecting is somewhat of a headache sometimes, and that's why you hire SDRs at entry level and help them grow and learn about the process, and then they get promoted, and the cycle goes on and on. So we've actually experimented with that a little bit, but we actually elected to take that out of our department structure. I'll go into the reasons a little bit later, but the two tools that have been really good for us and impactful were LinkedIn Sales Navigator, as well as Prospect. It's prospect.io or Try Prospect. Pretty much it is a prospecting tool that imports the information from LinkedIn to Salesforce, checks for dupes, all that good stuff. So our sales operations people are happy with that, and that it's not dirty data being imported. If you guys remember, maybe 4 or 5 months ago or so, the most premier product that did that got sunsetted. And so unfortunately we were all left without a lifeboat, but lo and behold, came along Prospect and actually working really, really well for us in terms of getting the information we need into Salesforce without the salespeople having to manually input everything they find in Sales Navigator.
So yeah, and I've actually used that, I believe. And so you're talking about basically you've removed SDRs by equipping your reps with Sales Navigator plus Prospect. So when they go to someone's profile, one click in Salesforce, boom, start reaching out.
Exactly. That's definitely one piece of why we removed the SDR process for sure. But yeah, we definitely that was one of the biggest factors too. If we said, hey, if we can give salespeople a really easy tool to prospect and to call, it's like that definitely brought a different reason and another reason to kind of eliminate the SDR process. To go into that real quickly with the SDR process, we used to actually have 3 different roles in our sales department. We used to have a SDR, an account executive who would close deals, and another role we called a meal consultant. But what they were responsible for is almost as if they were a different client onboarding side of things. We've actually elected to align all the roles vertically into one AE role. So everyone kind of does a little bit of everything. The biggest driver for that is we found that the less people doing those roles and the less number of handoffs for our type of target customer and prospect, the better it was for our whole system. The more or less the churn rates were down, the relationships were a lot stronger, the deal sizes could potentially get a lot bigger because you had salespeople ushering the process all the way through and taking advantage of every sales opportunity that they saw.
That's very interesting. So yes, you guys you reshaped your whole process around what your your customer was indicating they wanted, which was cradle to the grave, single person to work with, as opposed to being handoff. And the data is what you use to make that discovery.
Exactly. We saw that churn numbers were definitely a lot lower. We saw that deal sizes could definitely be a lot bigger when there's a singular point of contact. And we also saw a lot less, a huge dramatic decrease in drop balls, because it wasn't, hey, you're supposed to send me this and I was supposed to send it to that person. And then we're going to kind of keep going around the same circle 80 times before a deal gets closed. It was more, hey, I'm responsible for everything under this umbrella until the deal closes.
That's awesome. Yeah, going back to accountability. Love it, man. Well, we're running out of time here, Thomas. So I want to give you some time to tell people where they can get in contact with you and where they can learn more about ZeroCater. There's a lot of people here who get hungry at work. I'm sure you're interested in your services.
Yeah, definitely. You can learn a lot more about ZeroCater at ZeroCater.com. A lot of information there if you want to feed your office on a recurring basis is our top priority. We also do one-off meals that have for meetings and things of that nature. And then my personal contact information falls right in line with that. It's Thomas, Thomas, at ZeroCater.com. And if you have any questions or just want to chat about my sales team and our progress, more than welcome to hit me up.
Awesome. Thomas, love it, man. This has been super insightful. Everybody, this has been this session of Align 2017. We've got more to come, so stay tuned. Thanks, Thomas, and we'll see you for the next session.